So let's talk about something we've all been through, that tender red glow after maybe a little too much time in the sun. It seems pretty straightforward, right? But the actual story of a sunburn is way more dramatic than you think. Let's get right into it. Why do we get sunburned?
Of course you have. We all have. You know that feeling, the tender, reddish skin that shows up hours after you've been outside. You might think, oops, just a simple mistake, I forgot to reapply sunscreen. But what's really happening inside your skin, well, it's a lot more complex and, honestly, a lot more intense than you'd imagine.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll talk about the invisible force that's actually causing the burn. Then, we'll look at how our skin basically sounds the alarm. We'll also get into the long-term risks, which are super important. And then, we'll get to the good stuff, your protective shield, and some really simple steps for sun safety. All right, let's start right at the beginning. The whole story of a sunburn kicks off with a kind of invisible attack from our own star, the sun, thanks to a specific type of energy it's sending our way. So, the main culprit here is something called ultraviolet radiation, or UV for short. Now, think of these rays as millions of tiny, invisible bullets. There are two main types to worry about: UV rays, which are the ones that really cause that burn, and UV rays, which go deeper and are the main driver of skin aging. You can't see them, you can't feel them at first, but they are absolutely bombarding your skin when you're outside. And here's where things get serious. When these little bullets of radiation hit your skin, they don't just bounce off. Nope. They go right in and damage the very blueprint of your cells, your DNA. Now, your skin does have a natural defense. It's called melanin. That's the pigment that gives you a tan. But it can only take so much before it gets overwhelmed, and that's when you get a direct hit on your genetic code. So when your cell's DNA gets all busted up like that, your body does not just sit back and take it. It launches an immediate, full-scale emergency response. It's pretty amazing, actually. And this quote just nails it. That red, painful skin you feel, that isn't really the injury itself. It's the visible proof of your body's frantic rescue mission. It is literally an SOS signal, a cry for help coming from your damaged skin cells. So how does this whole SOS thing work? Well, it all starts with step 1, that initial DNA damage from the UV rays. In response, step 2, those poor damaged cells release a flood of chemical distress signals. This triggers step 3, the big emergency response. Your body rushes a ton of blood to the area to start the repair process. And the result of all that extra blood flow? That's step 4, the red, swollen, and painful skin that we all know as a sunburn.
Okay, so that whole inflammatory response, the redness and the pain, that usually fades in a few days. But the story does not end there, not even close. The real danger of a sunburn is what happens long-term because of that DNA damage.
You know, every single time you get a sunburn, you're basically adding to a lifetime of damage that just keeps building up. This speeds up skin aging, leading to more wrinkles and sunspots. But the core problem is that repeated damage to your DNA. Over time, it compromises your cell's ability to repair themselves correctly, and that's what dramatically increases your risk of skin cancer down the road. All right, that was definitely the bad news. But here's the good news. We are not defenseless against this invisible attack. Not at all. We have some incredibly effective tools we can use. So the question is, what's the best way to build up our defenses? Well, the number one tool in our arsenal is probably something you already have sitting in your bathroom cabinet. Sunscreen. It's your personal wearable shield, and it works in one of two main ways. First, you have physical sunscreens. These use minerals like zinc oxide to create a barrier that acts like a bunch of tiny mirrors just reflecting the UV rays away. Then you have chemical sunscreens, which work more like a sponge. They actually absorb the UV radiation and, through a chemical reaction, turn it into harmless heat before it ever gets a chance to damage your cell's DNA. So yeah, using sunscreen is absolutely key, but a really effective defense plan involves a few more simple, common-sense strategies that are super easy to build into your daily routine. Building a good defense really comes down to being consistent. So first, apply that sunscreen generously. And I mean it, most people just don't use enough. And make sure to reapply it every couple of hours. Second, use shade to your advantage. An umbrella, a big tree, these can be a total lifesaver, especially between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. when the sun is at its strongest. And finally, don't forget that your clothes are a fantastic shield. A wide-brimmed hat, sunglasses, long sleeves, they all provide a really reliable physical barrier. Look, when you boil it all down, this is the single most important thing to remember.
A sunburn isn't just a temporary pain or an inconvenience. It is a loud, clear warning sign from your body, telling you that your skin is under attack and its long-term health is at risk.
Think about it. Your skin is your body's largest organ. It works around the clock, 24/7, as your first line of defense against literally everything. So, the question we want to leave you with is a simple one. Are you doing enough to protect it in return?